Now we got to get water hooked up to that wheel line. And so there's a couple of ways we can do that. Sometimes we can put the water into the line in the middle of the line. And hydraulically that's ideal. So we would simply put a T in the middle of the line where we could hook a hose up to that T. That would be the most efficient, but oftentimes a farmer would rather not have a valve line going right through the middle of his field because you have to farm around all those valves. So they'll put them at the end of the line. And then if you put the main line at the edge of the field, you can run one field one way, 32 pipes, the other field the other way, 32 pipes, up to about 40 pipes. We get, you know, about 40 is about the limit, just hydraulically, and for the sake of the mover to try to roll the pipe, you get more than 40 pipe, you just can't get enough drive with the mover. So in a standard length field in an area that's been blocked out in sections, quarter sections, is going to be 32 joints or 33 joints long, somewhere in that neighborhood, a quarter mile. 40 foot divided into 1,320 will give you a value of around 32. And so we have the need to be able to hook up to the end of a pipe as well for the end feeds. We'd have a center feed, it's going to be a T right in line, it'll just be a ring lock T with ring locks hooking the T into place and a hose coupler that fits right into the side outlet T. In the end feed, we have two choices. We can use what we call a telescope pipe, which means a smaller pipe inside the wheel line pipe to slide over and hook up to the valve opening elbow at the edge of the field, or we could use a hose. But in any manner, we still have to have an adapter to do that. And this is called a telescope adapter, so that we can put a telescope pipe in it. So we have a 4-inch wheel line mounted on to this coupler, and we can slide a piece of 3-inch aluminum tube up through the middle of it and hook on to the valve opener. So that would be the other adaptation to be used, is what we call a telescope pipe, which would be one size smaller pipe that would slide inside the wheel line, a telescope pipe. If it were a 5-inch wheel line, we'd use a 4-inch telescope pipe. If it's a 4-inch wheel line, we use a 3-inch telescope pipe. And that telescope pipe would be a piece of aluminum. It could be 20 or 30 feet long. And it would simply slide up inside the other pipe, has a gasket fit, and then if you were 20 feet away from the main line, you'd only, if you had a 30-foot pipe in there, 10 feet would be sticking back up in the line, and 20 feet would be out hooked up to the main line, which has the valve opening elbow attached to it. So you'd have a piece of aluminum between these two items. Or you could put a piece of hose with a hose end on both ends. And the hose fitting looks just like an end plug. I don't have a hose fitting here, but it would just be like an end plug, except instead of having a blank end here, it would have a hose attached to the end of it with some hose clamps on it. They just insert in both ends. Telescope adapter. Now I cannot roll a mover into the room, but to drive this thing we have to have a mover that's going to make this wheel line roll across the field. Now the tubing is the axle. The actual torque tube, the torque tube is the axle for the whole system. So what we have to do is make sure that we attach that torque tube very securely to the mover. The mover sits right in the middle. So if we have a 32 joint wheel line, there'll be 16 pipes on one side, 16 pipes on the other. If it's a 20 joint wheel line, there'll be 10 pipes on one side, 10 pipes on the other. So we put the mover in the middle. The rare exception, if we're running on a hillside, on a side slant, we may want to move the mover uphill a joint or two to help it roll across a sloped field more uniformly or straight. We really want to make these things run straight.